All right. So we got infancy and childhood. So we're going to describe the major competencies of newborns, explain the milestones of physical, social, and cognitive development during childhood. Sorry. So we're at 13. Alright, reflexes. There are some things that babies are born already knowing what to do. One is called a rooting reflex. Rooting reflex is if you ever touch a baby's cheek, the baby will turn around and start sucking on that on your pinky. That's for to feed and stuff like that. If you hold the baby like this and just kind of make it fall down a little bit, they'll actually have their arms out and their legs out and their hands out, and they think this is from evolutionary times when our apes ancestors would fall out of trees and the babies would try to hold on to something on the way down. You also have babies who grab a hold of your finger again, and they can actually hold their body weight. And they think this is from our evolutionary ancestors as apes, when our ape babies used to grab a hold of his mom's fur while they were on her back. And babies already know how to walk in a way. Well, because if you hold them up, they'll do the walking steps on their own. And they somewhat know how to swim. And I wouldn't suggest throwing a baby in the pool and see what happens, but they do know how to swim somewhat. Okay. That they don't have a whole lot of depth perception. That is something they have to learn. They've never seen faces before, so they have to learn faces. They probably do know their mother's voices pretty early because they spent all that time in her belly and can recognize her voice. May even be able to recognize dad's voice a little bit. Attachment is the connection between the baby and the parents. Attachment is very important for child development. A healthy attachment. There's 3 types. There's the secure attachment, and this is when a baby likes to explore. And so, as long as the baby knows where mom and dad are at, the baby will feel secure enough to go and explore and come back to the home base that is mom and dad. You also see that when you drop off a baby at babysitters, the baby will cry because mom's leaving. Avoidant, the baby doesn't have much of a connection with mom or dad, tries to avoid, doesn't like being picked up, leave me alone. And then there's ambivalent, where the baby really doesn't care. Father's role is similar to the mother's role. Interact. Babies need to be held. Babies need to be touched. It is a requirement for humans to hold their babies, love their babies, because it is very important for their development during the critical period, for brain development during the I forgot what it's called, pruning stage. Because once the pruning stage is over, critical development is over, you can't go back. You can't go back and change things. Now, after that, it would take therapy to learn how to be able to reprogram their brain. Child care outside the home can be beneficial. Because, it allows babies to interact with one another. It also allows babies to, get sick, which is in a lot of ways okay, because you want babies to be exposed to some things early in life. You don't want them to live in a sterile environment. You actually want babies to go out there and experience the world. Parenting styles. Authoritarian are like, this is my rules, this is my house, and you will live by my rules or you can get out. Alright? Those are authoritarian parents. There's not a lot of room for compromise. It's their way or the highway. And then you have permissive parents who are too lax and they don't have enough rules and so forth. And then there are what's called authoritative parents. And these tend to be the best parents according to research. because although they set firm limits, they use reasoning, they use judgment, they encourage independence, they're able to compromise and discuss with their child or teenager to come to a mutual understanding. And so it's not too strict or too lax, it's just, right in the middle. And these tend to produce the best adults. I mean, if you grow up in an authoritarian household, a lot of those kiddos will go off to college and fail the first year because they don't have mom and dad always on their butt trying to get them to do things. And they don't know how to handle freedom very well. Liberal, same way. Or not liberal, submissive parents. And then uninvolved, they're just not very involved at all with their kids, and they don't seem to really care a whole lot. How much time we got? Okay, infancy and middle adulthood. So right here, Erick Erickson was a famous developmental psychologist. I believe he was Swiss. And he says that through development in human life, there are certain stages that we go through. And each stage will have an effect on the next stage of development. Okay. According to Erick Erickson, the first thing we learn as human beings in life is whether or not we could trust our parents. We could trust our, safe, or being home, being safe at home. That's the first thing you learn. When a baby cries, research will say when a baby will cry. When a baby cries, what you should do is pick up that baby. The baby's crying for a reason. And he has to learn that when he or she is crying, that you'll be there to pick him up and to hold them and to make them feel good. That's the first thing they do. If they learn to mistrust their environment right off the bat, it can have an effect in all the later stages of life. Autonomy versus shame and doubt, ages 1 through 3. This is where a child will learn freedom. This is when, the child might get mad at you for helping them. No, Daddy, I can do that. It is that kind of development, and the best thing you could do is to let them learn, let them be, independent in a way, or else they'll shame and doubt their own abilities and not be able to progress well in the later stages. Oops, wrong one. And here's all of them right here. We have initiative versus guilt, where you take initiative to go do things, all right? To do things that you enjoy doing, or else you feel guilty about doing it. And then industry versus inferiority. Does a child feel good about the things they are producing? And this is why, even in initiative versus guilt stage or younger, this is why when my daughter brings home something and it is just our work, he said, this is you, Daddy, and this is Mommy, and this is my brother, and this is our dogs, all right? It looks nothing like us. It is, it's not a Picasso. But what do I tell her? I tell her this is awesome, it's beautiful, and where do I put it? I put it on the fridge, okay? Because I want to develop this initiative, this industry, and feeling good about the things that she accomplishes. Because, according to Erick Erickson, later in development, this will help her become a high-functioning, well adult, okay? During the teenage years, we go through what's called identity versus role confusion. This is where teenagers try to find who they are, where they fit in, what they might do in their life, or they go aimlessly and they don't have an idea what they want to do. And this can last a while. It doesn't necessarily have to be just your adolescence years. Intimacy versus isolation. This is where we like to get married and have babies and develop these loving, long-term relationships. And generativity versus stagnation. This is, middle-aged people my age. And this is where you feel like you should have a sense of doing well for the community, that you are worth something in the community, you're contributing something to society, or you're just kind of just stagnant. And then the last stage is ego, integrity versus despair. And this is the process where basically you have two different types of old people. You have old people who are always upset and pissed off, They're very angry all the time. Or you have those with integrity who have no regret in life. They look forward. They don't really fear death any longer. They look back at their life and they have very little regret. They feel like their life was worth something. Or you have despair where people look back full of regret and they fear death. Oh, I went too far. Okay. And then I already discovered this right here. Okay, now we got 4 minutes. Piaget's cognitive development. Jean Piaget. He was more into cognition, so he started out with sensory motor stage, in which when we're little, when we're babies, we explore the world by putting things in our mouths, touching things, and that's how we learn about the environment. All right, and object permanence. As a baby, you don't have that. Basically, what that means is, for example, you see me, now you don't. So to a baby, I no longer exist. But to everyone else your age, you know I'm just off screen. And once you develop object permanence, you know that although you don't see me, I'm still around. Okay. Pre-operational state, they're more egocentric thoughts. The world revolves around them. Not around anyone else but them. This is why they don't like to share things. They always, throw a fit if you don't give them their candy. During the pre-operational stage, it's all about me, 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 me. Concrete operational stage, ages 7 through 12. This is when kids become more logical in their thought. They may begin to doubt that Santa Claus really exists or any other like tooth fairy, because how can a Santa Claus get to all the places around the world in one day? Well, they kind of figured it out. It's impossible. So they become more concrete in their thinking. And conservation is the idea that although the shape of an object is different, they're still the same amount. For example, you might have a tall, skinny glass and a short, fat glass. And to a kid before this stage, you could ask a kid if one has more, they're both the same. Okay? And then if you pour the fat glass into a skinny glass, the little kid will say, well, this one has more now, although it's exactly the same. When you reach concrete operational stage, well, you understand that they're both the same. And in formal operational stage is we're able to have abstract logical thoughts, we can have discussions, we can have, we can think of consequences and stuff like that. And then we have information processes. We change the way we think, our cognitive abilities to think. And then we get to the age where we have what's called metacognition, which is when we're able to think about our own thinking. We're thinking about thinking. What's the process that we're using to come to conclusions? All right. And then zone of proximal development. This is an educational term that we use often in education. Basically, is where is the child at? Now, set a goal that's just slightly out of reach for that child, or that adolescent, or even that adult. And then push and crawl till you get to that new development, and then set a new development that's just slightly out of reach. And you keep on going and going and going and do that. Works well in education and helps with people development or to attain their goals. All right, I'm going to stop this right here.